Hello ladies and gentlemen, Big Daddy Top Hat here. It has been around 6 weeks since the Sega 60th anniversary celebration, where to commemorate the occasion, for a limited window they would distribute some free-to-play games. Around the time of this event I uploaded a video looking at the history of Golden Axe, the tongue-in-cheekily named cancelled Golden Axe project, which as part of the anniversary Sega allowed fans to actually play for the first time. This was a juicy story that week due to this surprise release annoying the game's original developers, who became perturbed about not being notified by Sega about this game surfacing, and the fact that they were expecting to produce the game back in the day under what they deemed as unrealistic timeframes. Today we are going to be focusing on the other highly interesting beat 'em up that Sega made available to the world that week, Streets of Kamurocho. A game that Sega would hype as a free-to-experience Streets of Rage and Yakuza crossover title. But prior to this game's release, apart from seeing a dash of gameplay, we did not have that much more to go off initially. So now the availability window to download this game has come and gone, what exactly did this unexpected freebie bring to the table? Let's find out. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the mad story of Streets of Kamurocho, another bloody new Streets of Rage game. Yeah! 2020, it has been one hell of a year, but despite the many ups and downs, well, mostly downs, there was at least one amazing thing that happened this year, the release of Streets of Rage 4, the long-awaited sequel to the original Streets of Rage trilogy that we had all been patiently waiting 27 years for. The game was both a massive critical and commercial success, bringing much needed light to this overall on the whole dark year. Despite laying dormant for so bloody long, Streets of Rage was back, but what many people would not expect was that this huge project would not be the only Streets of Rage related title that would see released this year, which brings us around to the surprising emergence of Streets of Kamurocho. As mentioned briefly a moment ago, Streets of Kamurocho was announced as a Streets of Rage Yakuza crossover experience, which I guess marketing and promotion wise kind of made sense when you take into account that both of these franchises are framed around crime and inner city violence. But more importantly than that, as mentioned, Streets of Rage 4 proved highly popular this year, and Sega were hoping that their Yakuza Like a Dragon game for current and next generation hardware would also find a massive audience. Another factor, I guess, that makes a project like this interesting is that such a crossover could arguably create some sort of bridge between different generations of gamers. For example, you may have an old stubborn Gen Xer who loves 16-bit style games who is more cautious around trying more modern cinematic experiences, who could end up trying out Yakuza after this. But then in the opposite corner you may have some impatient Zoomer trying this out, who on the whole is ignorant to the greatness of the 16-bit era, who could end up getting a taste for old school beat 'em ups when checking this game out to see their favourite Yakuza characters. Of course I am talking extreme ends of the gaming spectrum here, but it is certainly interesting food for thought. So let's dive in and talk about what was actually delivered to us on the 17th of October 2020 as promotional freeware through the Steam store. Like any Streets of Rage title, upon starting the game up, we have the classic text scroll theme of Yuzo Koshiro. This text informs the player that the death of the Tojo clan's third chairman had plunged the organisation into chaos. From there it informs the player that the violence spreads to the streets and only Kazuma Kiryu and Goro Majima can put an end to the bloodshed. The game, that can be played single player or cooperatively, offers the gamer whether they want to play with a controller or keyboard before bringing the player to the character select screen. Here players are given a choice between 3 characters lovingly recreated as 16-bit sprites for this experience. To quickly run through the well-known characters, as mentioned in the text scroll, we have Kazuma Kiryu, the main protagonist of most of the Yakuza series, who has a muscular stamp from his constant street fighting and use of heavy weapons. In Kamurocho, he wears his trademark outdated suit, consisting of a light grey blazer, suit trousers and a maroon shirt with an upturned collar, so is instantly recognisable in this rendition. His legendary ascent through the ranks of the Tojo clan earned him a nickname, the Dragon of Dojima. He was the 4th chairman of the Tojo clan and previously managed Morning Glory Orphanage. Secondly, we have Goro Majima, a recurring supporting character in the Yakuza series and one of the main playable protagonists of Yakuza 0 and Yakuza Dead Souls, as well as the main protagonist of the Majima saga of the Yakuza Kiwami 2. In the Yakuza canon, he is known for his ferocity in battle that have earned him the nickname of the Mad Dog of Shimano. The man is the patriarch of the Majima family, president of Majima Construction, chief advisor to the 6th chairman of the Tojo clan, as well as the former vice chairman of the Tojo clan. In the main series of games, Majima is depicted to have a lean build which he utilises to achieve incredible levels of speed and agility. He appears to have more muscular legs than arms, which is likely due to his reliance on kicking and acrobatics. Finally, we have Ichiban Kasuga, a character who is rewarded as an unlockable. He appears to be placed as a playable character in the game to help promote the latest Yakuza game known as Yakuza Like a Dragon, where he functions as that title's main protagonist. Ichiban in Yakuza has a balanced muscular build that gives him the opportunity to be proficient at a variety of fighting styles. Kasuga's signature suit consists of a maroon jacket and a blazer worn over a white shirt with an upturned collar and a gold chain necklace, which is well represented in this promotional title. Ichiban Kasuga, for lack of a better term, is a fiercely loyal and steadfast individual, in contrast to Kazuma Kiryu's much more stoic and level-headed personality. Ichiban wears his heart on his sleeve and is prone to being impulsive and overly excitable. So now we have covered the characters and story this game presents, let me run you through the gameplay and level design presented here. To put it simply, the title is a mashup between Streets of Rage 2 and of course the Yakuza games. As mentioned, you can choose between one of 3 of these Yakuza characters, however when you begin playing you will quickly notice that moveset wise all 3 of these characters are simply based on Axel Stone, as opposed to Blaze, Skate or any other Streets of Rage 2 characters. So ultimately, it does not make much difference with regards to which one you actually choose. Sadly, the game only features one single stage, which is all based on the opening stage from Streets of Rage 2, but on the other hand, could you really expect much more from a free-to-play promotional title? I guess not really. What we do have here though is absolutely beautiful, and a wonderfully creative effort. If we put this all into perspective, Nintendo are continuously charging their consumer base full price for the same old games, and here we have Sega giving away brand new content completely for free. It is fascinating to see the very different approaches taken by these Japanese gaming brands. Anyway, in regards to the game's setting, players obviously fight their way through the streets of Kamurocho, much like the title's name suggests. The region is modelled after Kabukicho, the real-life entertainment and red light district of Tokyo. The stage layout itself is very much the same as in Streets of Rage 2, however aesthetically it all looks very different. A keen eye will notice plenty of references to Yakuza within the stage design, including Stardust, a host club featured throughout the series. In fact, you will notice that the businesses and buildings that make up the backdrop to the game are recognisable to long-term fans of the series. Speaking of Yakuza-ness while wandering the streets, you can pick up weapons not present in Streets of Rage 2, such as traffic cones for example. Being a reflection of Streets of Rage 2, the game obviously includes the fantastic diagonally scrolling section of the opening stage, and the in-game respawning enemies are inspired from the Yakuza games in terms of sprites. These include the likes of Thug Yamadi, Chinese Mafia Wang, Yakuza Tanada, and more whose movements and attack patterns are copied from old Streets of Rage enemies such as Gaussia, Signal and Donovan. In terms of more notable opponents, knife-wielding Jack, who guards the end of the street section in Streets of Rage 2, is swapped out for Lau Ka Long, a recurring antagonist from the Yakuza games and former head of the Snake Flower Triads. Once inside the stage's bar section, the level looks very similar to the bar found in the second Streets of Rage game, however comparing the two areas side by side, the developers have taken the effort to use modern technology to create a more impressive looking environment, while still managing to retain the old school feel. The great use of lighting in this part of the game further emphasises this too. At the end of this section, rather than taking on the dominatrix known as Elektra, players must face off against Koji Shindo, a well-known character from the first two Yakuza games who served as the captain and later patriarch of the Nishikiyama family. Like in Streets of Rage 2, the stage obviously culminates in what appears to be the alleyway behind the bar. While Streets of Rage 2 offered some great rain effects when squaring off against Bulban and his goons, in Kamurocho they made this area look even more beautiful, featuring obviously more refined rain effects, and once again some great use of lighting. I particularly liked the neon lights reflecting on the wet paving. Bulban in Kamurocho is swapped out for Akira, the main antagonist from the original Yakuza game, who was originally a sworn brother of our star Kazuma Kiryu. As already mentioned, in terms of stages, this is all we got with this promotional game. However, Sega did at least give gamers opportunities to keep going with this one, as after round 1 the game loops to the same stage, but with higher difficulty, which is then presented as round 2. Completing round 1 for the first time also unlocks Ichiban Kasuga, but the game offers some replayability by allowing players to chase high scores and progress through as many rounds of this game as possible. In fact, like with any Streets of Rage game, in the title's options, the game offers players a sliding difficulty to start off with, along with a leaderboard, allowing players to pursue the best scores in the world. Speaking of pursuits to be the best, Anthopants, who is largely considered to be the greatest Streets of Rage player 2 to have ever lived, notes in a video that the game reaches its highest difficulty at round 21, where characters no longer have the ability to perform specials and enemy attacks result in killing the player in one hit. So overall, when all is considered, I think this game was a fantastic little giveaway and a great effort from Empty Clip Studios, a California-based video game development house who Sega tasked with making the majority of this game. It would probably never happen, but I for one would be appreciative if these people were given the green light to make a full Streets of Kamurocho game down the line. I think a full game retaining the Streets of Rage 2 mechanics, combined with the Yakuza world, has great potential, particularly if such a game featured all new levels as opposed to simply using the template from the second Mega Drive installment. I, for one, am very happy that I downloaded this game using my Steam account during one of the 2 short windows that Sega made this game available during. It will remain a novel piece of history at least, even if it does exist simply as no more than a promotional title to promote Sega's big releases. This was a fun freebie that I was far more impressed with than Nintendo's recent slapping of a few ancient Mario games onto a Nintendo Switch cartridge, then selling it for 50 quid. I guess Sega always will do what Nintendo don't, and this was a prime example of that. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed my brief exploration of this curiosity, and I would be happy to hear your thoughts too on this somewhat obscure release. If you enjoyed this video, I have covered every single Streets of Rage game in depth on here in the past, so if you want some deep dive retrospectives on the subject, why not subscribe and check out my backlog. If you are a hardcore regular viewer of this channel and want even more, by backing this channel for just $5 a month, you unlock an exclusive extra video every week. Amongst my accessible backlog on Patreon, I have a biographical video on the story of Blaze Fielding, and new this week we took a look at the top 10 JRPGs I think you need to play before you die. Unlock these videos and so many more incentives over on Patreon. Speaking of Patreon, I would also like to give shout outs to some of the people who back the channel on the fine platform, so thank yous go out to Sebastian Velez, Carl Johnson, A Murder of Crows, Heyo Paulo Lopez, Joseph Razmik, Corey Imar Sr., Capcom vs SNK, BXL Gotham, Ryan Dinch, Evan Balder, Philip Manth, Cambo Rambo 82, Azrael Rarakai, Keith Ferguson, Joaquin Varela, Prince Knight, Michael Cullix, Ago, Jordan Durant, Angel Light 85, Alethea Swanson, Timothy W. Haskins II, Nick Daniels, Princess Anna, Glennie Glenn, Daniel Daly, Computer Man, House of the Ted, Gary Pinkett, ECU Professor, Kid Anime, Justin Wang, Aaron McNamara, Hermes Gonzalez, Instant Gratification Monkey, Man Shovel, James Bishop, JB, Posty XL, Michael Hall, Wesley Sanghi, Ben Dover, Langston Miller, Noob, Brian Barry, Stephen Lewis, Sarah Powell, Flaming Renee, Marvin Araliga, Chris Cool, TOG Driver, Adrian Hannington, Bernard NG, Richard Stu Stewart, James McDonald, Crazy Yarl, Dan Van Dammit, Adam Castin, Lewis Fiant, John Bates, David Bow, Chris Fisk, Paul Elliott, Me Machine Dean, Mike Bruno, Rick67, Antonio Rodriguez, Hans Christian, Craig Jenkins, Tom Elliott, Retroverse.com, Casey Wright, Synth Spaces, Zai, Gunther Hendricks, and everybody else who backs this channel. I love each and every one of you very, very much. Yeah, I love you long time. Cheerio. Bye.